We're on a roll. All right, let's rock it. So this guy wants to be the Sultan of Swing, as Dire Straits would say. Yeah, his name is Erdogan. Heard this guy? Yeah. And he wants to return and resurrect the Ottoman state. Now, you may have heard him over the recent days attacking Christianity directly, saying it, and can also be the challenge. So he said that he wants to take on the cross. Now, you never want to say those kinds of things because Jesus is going to get involved, and you don't want to be on the bad end of Jesus. You know what I'm saying? You don't want the sword coming out of Jesus' mouth to be coming towards you. And yet that's kind of what he said here. He says, hey, Wes, do you want to ignite a new struggle in the crescent against the cross? Now, he didn't even say end of the cross. You know, he didn't say like, hey, we're in this together. It's like, no, we're against you. And it's like, man, you don't want to be against the cross because, boy, don't get cross with the cross because it's going to come back and bite you, if you know what I'm saying. But hey, this is all going according to plan with those challenges. Guys, we should have seen it coming, right? It was right there in Revelation all along. The 7 churches of Revelation, we often call them that, and we talk about Smyrna and Pergamum and Ephesus and Laodicea and so forth. But we forget that they're actually all in Turkey, modern-day Turkey. So we should have known that Turkey was going to play a crucial role in these end times. Of course, we do know that from Ezekiel 38, but just how great still remains to be seen, although according to him, he's ready to go for it, and go for it means he's ready to get a... He's cruising for a bruising. Let's just put it that way, right? So it's right there in front of us all this time. Now, this guy, he doesn't just want to be, he can't wait to be king. He doesn't just want to rule Turkey. He wants to rule the world. And critics have attacked him, saying he's acting like, as you see the last line there, an Ottoman sultan, and that he wants to restore the Ottoman Empire. Now, the Ottoman Empire used to rule all of the land of Israel and parts of Africa and all the way over there to the east as well. I mean, it's a huge empire, and he wants to restore that, you see. And I think a lot of people of his vein are supporting that idea as well. Here, a famous philosopher said, Erdogan in Turkey is basically trying to create something like the Ottoman Caliphate, with him as caliph, supreme leader, throwing his weight around all over the place and destroying the remnants of democracy in Turkey at the same time. So that is what he's after and what he's doing. So what is a caliphate exactly? A caliphate is an institution or public office under the leadership of an Islamic steward with the title of caliph, a person considered a political religious successor to the Islamic prophet, what they consider a prophet, Muhammad, and a leader of the entire Muslim world. So he wants to lead the entire Muslim world, guys. He wants to take over the Middle East. So he's seeing this as his golden opportunity. This is his chance to make. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about what we see here in Ezekiel 38. And it's very intriguing because it talks here about hooks. Oh, amen. So in Ezekiel 38, it talks about, and God talks about, saying, I will turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and lead you out with all your army, horses and horsemen, all splendidly clothed, a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Now, it's interesting, he says handling swords, because that kind of reminds you of a sultan. You know, sultans have those interesting scimitar swords that they have. You often see, kind of in Indiana Jones when the Sultan was, or I don't know that he was a Sultan, but he was of that ilk, with his scimitar sword, and then he famously just takes out the gun and takes him out, right? So in any case, they're going to be handling swords. So that kind of points to a certain type of person, right? Off with their heads, as we've been talking about, right? In Revelation 13. So that's kind of interesting. But what's also interesting here is talking about these hooks in the jaws. Now, for a while I've said, boy, it's kind of strange to think of Erdogan needing hooks in his jaws because he's chomping at the bit. He can't wait to get into Israel. But maybe it has a different meaning. We know Mr. Poot of the Inn, I see you mentioned there, is someone who would probably need more of the hooks. He's up there doing stuff in Ukraine right now. So that's why, and he may yet be a person for that. But let's take a look at these words real quick. So the word, it actually doesn't say, I will turn thee back, as it says here. It actually says, you return. The word is shuv, like teshuva. We've been talking a lot about that, about returning to the Lord, and that's the word shuv there. And then the next word is a natan. Now you may recognize that word. I'm going to share something in just a second on that, natan, and that actually means to give, to give. And then hooks. Hooks is basically hooks or chains. Could also mean chains. And then jaws or the mouth or the jawbone. And so made me kind of think of this a little bit differently. Now, the word natan, before I get to the hooks here, you may remember this young lad who had a dream, a vision. His name was Natan. You remember that? I gotta skip this to show you this. But his name was Natan, and he was a boy who had a vision. He died basically, and he had a vision of the destruction of Israel and what was going to happen. And so his name is Natan. And so I thought that was kind of intriguing that God says, return Natan, and then the hooks and the jaws. Now, I thought about the hooks and the jaws, and I thought, well, that's kind of interesting too, because maybe it's not so much a hook pulling him, but something that's pushing him, driving him. And jaws could mean something that they talk about, something they speak about. So when I thought of the old time hook, right, we get this image of like Captain Hook, right? Kind of this rounded hook kind of action. I thought, well, wow, that looks a lot like this, which is Turkey's flag. Could this be the hook that we're talking about here? The hook that's in his jaw, because as he was speaking a lot over the last few days and sending out his rhetoric and hatred and his attacks, right, against the cross, could this be the hook that we're referring to? And I thought about Mr. Putin as well, and he also has a hook. He's trying to resurrect as well. If you think about it, what he's trying to do in Ukraine, he's trying to restore what they had during the U.S. to the SR. And that, too, has a very similar hook, you could argue, as part of it as well. Then, of course, I couldn't leave out Mr. Chuckster. And I thought, well, what about Chucky? And I thought, well, isn't it interesting? He wants to be buried in Jerusalem. And one of the things it says here in Ezekiel, it says, it will come to pass in that day, I will give Gog a burial place there in Israel. So I thought, well, that's kind of intriguing, too. So, we talked before about Gog, how Gog could be bigger than an individual, because I do kind of wonder, like, okay, because it talks about Gog being buried there, and I'm like, okay, so is Erdogan going to literally go there physically and die on a battlefield? I kind of doubt that, right? Or are we talking more about a movement of Gog that's going to die out there that perhaps could be supported by all of those individuals? We know there's a lot of players involved. In fact, here it talks about the young lions. And we know the United Kingdom has the lion as their symbol, but they're not the only ones talked about in Ezekiel that have a lion. Also, Ethiopia and Libya, or Put and Cush, also have the lion as their symbol. So the young lions are with them, it talks about here. And what's also interesting, it says, on that day, it'll come to pass and thoughts will arise in your mind. You'll make an evil plan. So it's kind of like he always wanted to be ruler. And so he's making his evil plan. But could we be talking about more than one individual, even though we're kind of talking about them collectively as one? It says, I will go up against the land of unwalled villages. I will go to a peaceful people who dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates, to take plunder and to take booty, to stretch out your hand against the waste places that are again inhabited, and against a people gathered from the nations, which is exactly what we have now in Israel. People gathered from all the nations, the diaspora, and they all came back. They've all were invited to come back and given free citizenship. Just come on down. Who have acquired livestock and goods, who dwell in the midst of the land. And then it talks about Sheba, Dedan, the merchants of Tarshish, and all their young lions will say to you, have you come to take plunder? Have you gathered your army to take booty, to carry away silver and gold, to take away livestock and goods, to take great plunder? Now, we know someone like Chucky, for example. I mean, he's not going to outright come against Israel, right? But behind the scenes, they're playing both sides, guys. There's no sides anymore. It's just there's evil, good and evil. Those are the sides. But they're playing both sides of the fence, and they may act like a friend on the surface, while meanwhile they're sponsoring them from behind, as we know the U.S. of A. did with this whole invasion when they gave the money to I to the R to the A to the N, and then they gave it over to HAMAS. So it all just kind of works that way. But what's interesting about this whole booty and plunder thing is Erdogan specifically said something about this, which I found kind of intriguing. He's quoted, he gave a speech saying, "In our civilization, conquest is not occupation or looting for the booty," right? We just read about. It's establishing the dominance of the justice that who they consider God, Allah, commanded in the region. First of all, our nation removed the oppression from the areas that it conquered. It established justice. This is why our civilization is one of conquest. Right. So one moment he says, oh, we're not of conquest. Our conquest is not our occupation or looting, right? But he says, but we are of conquest. And he says, Turkey will take what is its right in the Mediterranean Sea, in the Aegean Sea, in the Black Sea. So do you understand? So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth here. One minute he says, I'm not about the booty. And then another minute he says, but we're going to take what's ours. See? So the plunder, he's coming for the plunder, as we see in Ezekiel. Very intriguing words there from Mr. Erdogan. And then one last thought here before we get into the mysterious SON. And that is that it says after he's buried there that those who live in the area are going to live off the fuel of the weapons for 7 years. And we know we've all been talking about 7 years. Even the devil's talking about 7 years. And as far as the devil's concerned, that 7 years has begun this year. And we know they have a 7-year plan. And we know that Chuckster is going to come here this month. They're going to begin and in the beginning of next month confirm that plan. Both they did that in the UN already. Now he's going to do it as well. So very interesting timing with this 7 years. Could it be, perhaps, that Erdogan is taken out, but his SON takes over for 7 years? And we're going to see a connection with that with the Mahdi. The Mahdi is the Messiah that the Muslims are waiting for. And we're going to talk about how he may in fact be their fulfillment of that. Now, again, that's all false prophecy and a false God, but it doesn't matter. That's, as far as they're concerned, that's what they believe, right? So we have to understand that, and we have to examine that. Okay,